since we've spread to 123 plus countries. We're focused, essentially, our focus is on mobilizing the 1.8 billion youth of the world to take action on issues of climate change. Our tagline, which we live by very closely, is youth inspired by knowledge. And therefore, a fundamental premise that we hold very close to our hearts in everything we do is really founding our work on credible information and the science of climate change. And therefore, also capacity building is a key part of what we do. Certainly, advocacy is an important one. And as we're a movement, the coming together, the collectivization, the knowledge exchange, the dialogue among and between young people from around the world is critical to the movement and its ability to achieve its scale in terms of to become a movement as well. What we keep very close to our hearts as well is the fact that while youth, the 1.8 billion youth of the world, are the center of our existence, we believe very strongly in intergenerational dialogue. We believe in the fact that there's much to learn through exchange across generations, cross generations, and therefore also reflected in our partnerships. We are certainly partnered with several young groups and networks and organizations, but we also have among our 411 partners from around the world, universities, schools, businesses, governments, and just about every single group of stakeholder that you can think of. Also, an important part of our work is inclusiveness. So we believe very closely in embracing people and communities. And in that is the whole idea of coming together with people from oftentimes very remote corners of the world who may not be able to see us on a platform such as this. So it's about coming together with indigenous communities, rural communities, in places and spaces where we would probably never get to physically, but neither would digital technology. So therefore, our hands and hearts, more importantly, on the ground are very, very important to our work. And key to this is the fact that we are very invested in participatory approaches to not only identifying issues, but also critically identifying solutions to issues on the ground. And so therefore, even though this is a way more time-consuming process, it is definitely one which not only engages communities, creates spaces for participatory dialogue and critical thinking, but is ultimately owned and sustainable because communities are involved from the beginning. So just to make this an example that would hopefully be more tangible, if you've got communities in rural parts of, say, Uganda or Cameroon or Nigeria or Venezuela or Mexico or wherever, what we do is we work with young leaders that then go out and mobilize more young people on the ground, engage them in discussion and dialogue, to not only identify solutions, but the first step being to identify what the issues are. And, you know, it does not count for ASH to decide that the most pressing issue, for example, in, I don't know, in Colombia would be A, B, C, or D, but very importantly would be something that Andres perhaps would lead together with other young people in Colombia to first dialogue about what those issues are, which ones they believe deserve to be addressed to begin with, and then find solutions that are locally applicable to those issues, rather than be told what the issues are and then the solutions. And so this this takes more time, but it's definitely an approach that is ground up, is respecting, is inclusive, and is community-led. So these interventions then really become by and for communities, and are owned by communities too. So this is really the approach that we adopt in our work. I do want to say also that our own model internal to the pop movement is really one that's focused on mentorship. So all of us are mentors, and Nahid here is a mentor. Nahid is 16, 17 years old, and she's leading a number of young people. She's being trained in the process. She has mentors, and then she mentors other people. And this is a practice of really learning by doing. And it's not something that's theoretical, but the only way that we can really become involved and invested is if we start to do. And therefore, respect is a very integral part of our being. We call ourselves a pop family. We treat ourselves as family, and are truly, let me say, we build our every block is built on love, respect, and inclusiveness. And this is something that we believe in strongly. And therefore, in our work, and in our discussions, in our programs, values are very key. And you always find, in addition to technicality and all the rest of it, values stand strong. And we believe also that this is key to any successful movement. We cannot call ourselves a global or universal family if we don't recognize diversity, adopt approaches of inclusiveness and love and respect, tolerance, and then hope that we will be able to do good and then sustain it too. So without those values, it's hard to make it stand for what we really do stand for. So this is just a little bit of a backdrop on the pop movement. We are now, as I mentioned, in about 123 countries plus, and have partnerships of all types. We focus extensively also on justice issues. We work on climate justice. We work on, we've got a lot of technology-based programs. We really have diversity in our approaches. And again, the approaches will depend entirely on how communities build them up. So we've got people who are working on energy, water, pollution. We've got people who are doing really a lot of dialogue-based communication on the ground with community-led action. And then we've got people who are using technology and innovation and AI. And we have a lot of variety in terms of the action, the nature of the action as well. So again, a lot of it depends. So for example, in the Caribbean region, we've got, and other regions, we've got a lot of ocean action and things like that. So it just is really driven by the communities that we work with. So just in a nutshell, and that's my little prelude to where and why, what the pop movement is about. The leadership conversations we're so blessed and grateful to have together with you here today are really about bringing the love, light, and leadership that people like yourselves have to share with the world, and inspire us, light up our minds and our hearts, and drive action founded on the strongest values. And therefore, this initiative, the climate leadership conversations of the pop movement, were instituted earlier this year. It's now a little over 6 months ago, and we've had about 20 plus conversations with a wide variety of people, including several from the World Academy of Art and Science, whom we're so grateful and blessed to have been able to invite and have the pleasure of their company, as we do yours. And so I wish to convey my deepest gratitude for this time, your inspiration to us, your sharing, and we do have we have a number of young people, and even people who are not necessarily young, but maybe adults, people who have technical interest in technical areas, that are working to listen into these conversations after they happen, with the idea to study and understand, develop in-depth understanding of certain issues and domains that are covered during the conversation, and of course to follow people that are people of interest and people that they would like to follow. So I just wanted to say that we have a number of people like you described. We also disseminate our conversations via newsletters as well. So I know there'll be a number of people who'll be listening into this conversation. I just wanted to say that it means the world to us to have you here today.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Thank you. I feel deeply honored to be invited and be part of this wonderful network. I wish there would be more interaction between older people like I am. I am young at heart. But I'm 63 years old, and the young people for whom I actually stand, and for whom I do everything that I can, because you are our future, and the resources are not widespread, but they need to be guided toward you, because you have the solutions. We have failed collectively in the past, and now it's up to you to help us get out of the crisis. And what we have is our resources, money, knowledge, networks. And so I'm grateful to be here and contribute my share. So thank you for having me. And for those who want to get in touch with me, you can always go to my website. It's aquagroup.com or aquacapital.com. I am everywhere, so you can contact me via various platforms. So I'd be happy to hear from you, and let me know how we can work together.
Thank you so very much. That is invaluable, and I just want to say that your willingness to reach out and connect is really what I think is at the heart of what we need today. And the wisdom, the values, the knowledge is what will not only guide us, but also I think forms the foundation. Forms the foundation of anything that's going to be solid and strong as we go forward. And I just wanted to say that this time together here today, but also your phenomenal contribution. I mean, all the content you have online, the willingness with which you share, the open heart, and I just want to say that means the world. So thank you for offering to connect with the many viewers, with the young people we have here today, and thank you. And I'd like to request Anna with that, and I think Anna, if you feel we're ready, and I'll request Mariana if she wants to get the recording going as well. If you're set, we can. I'll request you to start, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited about this conversation. I'm sure it's going to be a very, very interesting topic. And there's so much to talk about, because I feel like as young people, we really need to learn about integral investing as we make decisions that are environmental based from here on. So with this, I will go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for the day. We are already recording and we're live on Facebook. So whoever's watching us online, thank you so much for being here with us. Dr. Bozesan is the author of the Club of Rome report, Integral Investing, From Profit to Prosperity. She is an award-winning integral investor and a serial entrepreneur focusing on exponentially growing technologies to accelerate the implementation of UN SDGs within the planetary boundaries. She was named Europe's Female Angel Investor of 2019 Angels Europe and the Entrepreneur of the Year 2016 by IBAN, the European Business Angel Network. Mariana was awarded full membership in the International Club of Rome and is a fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. She was a National Advisory Board member for the G8 G20 Social Impact Investment Task Force and serves as a strategic advisor on safe AI, ethical and integral finance, and sustainability to various funds, NGO, local businesses, and governmental organizations. She is also a futurist, researcher, author, environmentalist, and human rights activist. Moreover, she is a prominent keynote speaker and an inspiring lecturer on the future of investing, business, finance, and economic at prestigious organizations including Stanford University, Oxford University, TEDx, and Rio Plus 20. The trained computer scientist is also a successful serial entrepreneur, a widely published academic writer, and the author of several books. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We are delighted to have you here with us. And I would like to hand it over to our senior mentor, Dr. Ash Pachauri, who will be asking the first question.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm honored to join forces with such amazing, extraordinary young people. So I'm totally fired up. So
thank you. Thank you so much. It really, truly means the world to us. I'd like to also provide a little welcome to the POP Leadership Conversations and say warm welcome, Mariana, and to all our listeners to the POP Climate Leadership Conversations, a tribute to our chief mentor. This project aims to strengthen youth leadership and explore tactics that empower the youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental issues faced globally. We are conducting a series of conversations on leadership strategies, recommendations, reflections, and examples, each focused on global leadership and a different pressing environmental issue. This initiative is designed and implemented as a tribute to our chief mentor, late Dr. R.K. Pachauri. Today, we have the greatest pleasure and privilege of speaking with Dr. Mariana Bozesan about integral investing. A very warm welcome, Mariana. Thank you so very much for being here together with us today and for your invaluable partnership. I'm sure we'll be able to do many wonderful things together. And I would love for you to share your insight, if you would agree, please, on what leadership means to you.
Leadership is basically the manifestation of human activity in every area. And everyone is a leader. I am convinced of that. However, leadership, our notion of leadership evolves with the society, with evolution of cultures, with our individual evolution, with our understanding of who we are as peoples, as individuals. Whether we're egocentric, think of ourselves only, ethnocentric, we think of our tribe only, of our country only, like we see it happening more and more these days, which is so detrimental in a globally acting world, or whether we have a global view of the world. So this is part of evolution. And so our leadership, the way leadership manifests, and I call that, from my perspective, consciousness leadership, is a function of our levels of consciousness. And that, of course, evolves with us, with our understanding, with culture, with everything that I mentioned before. In the introduction, you mentioned the code of conduct that drives your organization, and you mentioned values, and you mentioned respect and diversity and inclusion, and several others. However, when we speak of these terms, the definition and how the outer manifestation of values is a function of our interiors, of who we are individually and the society in which we act and that we represent. And that's why consciousness leadership is, for me, the definition of what needs to occur from a higher level of consciousness perspective, higher level of leadership. Just to give you an example, I am sure that when Trump came and ran to become, and this is going to be political because it is political. When Trump ran, or Orban in Hungary, or the head of Poland, or others for their position, they meant it. Make America great again. Well, yes, what's going to happen to India? What's going to happen to Germany if we make America great again, disrespecting, that we're actually all involved and part of a globally acting world. So that is a very tribal view of the world. And so the values that this kind of slogan implements is a direct reflection of the tribal thinking, of egocentric thinking, of tribal thinking, and which disregards that we're all in the same boat on this planet driving through the universe. So times have passed where we could think of ourselves only. Now the technology, everything that we have created globally over many centuries on the planet, through evolution and science and education and everything that makes us as a humanity, is global, and every action is manifested globally, and the planet is responding. So consciousness leadership is, for me, and this is actually the topic of my dissertation, is the definition of the kind of leadership that needs to occur from an integral point of view. Integral meaning integrating, integrated in terms of values from a higher level of consciousness, from a world-centric and not egocentric or ethnocentric worldview. This is not to mean that how I feel as an individual or my society are not important. The opposite is the case. I'm actually standing in for a healthy understanding and development and evolution of my ego as a person or of my tribe within the context of world action, of how we show up in the world in a global economy, global everything. So healthy evolution of ego and tribal understanding within the global federation, not only of the planet Earth, but also as we are becoming planetary beings, we need to take that into consideration. So leadership of tomorrow has to include these and be based on this higher levels of consciousness that I call universal, and which now going back to integral, the term integral, I was born and raised in communist Romania. So I grew up extremely poor, going to school without food very often. I was under the Ceausescu's dictatorship, false understanding of what it means, communism. It didn't have anything to do with the idea, but so I know what it means to be poor. And I also know what it means to want to come out of poverty. And because of my mother's heritage, being German, my father was Romanian, we were allowed, when I was 16 years old, I'm the only child, to emigrate from Romania to Germany, which of course provided a totally different contextual, cultural context than we had in Romania. So I have absolute understanding and respect and compassion and empathy for people who, and I'm supporting, that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, who want to get out of poverty, which is exactly what we need to all do. And we do have the resources. So we just need to be more careful and more loving and empathic when it comes to distribution and logistics. So, but at the same time, I think once we do have ensured the basics of life, then, and using the internet as the foundation and UBI in terms of the financial support, I think we all need to work together in helping humanity emerge from the emergency that we have collectively created out of the wrong mindset that is only about us, and those guys in the other tribe are our enemies, because times have changed and our consciousness, I hope, needs to transform. And that's why I think young people get this idea very easily, very quickly. Older people have a hard time. It's just, I think, a part of life. But we need to work together because the planet is fighting back. And so it tells us, no, the universe works against our low-level thinking. Sorry, a long answer to a short question, but I think that response gives you the answer that I wanted to give you.
Indeed, it does. And thank you. I mean, I think that it was not just, it was not a long answer. I think it was a rich answer. I think it was extremely informative and huge and sort of laden with a lot of value. So many, many thanks for sharing that. And I agree with you in entirety, those values that you described. And the elevation and also the depth that consciousness and conscious leadership brings to the fore is what will truly help us make it through, because everything that has been contrary that we've experienced in the past has brought us to where we are right now, and which is why we're facing this challenge and the emergency we're confronting right now. So many thanks for the very sort of detailed but very rich and valuable thoughts and the inspiration that you've shared. And I know this is something that we all need to hear, but also absorb and then practice. And I think that the level at which we're able to really internalize what you've just shared is what will be transformational. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, you mentioned two terms which I'd like to clarify. One is consciousness leadership and the other is conscious leadership. I explicitly make the difference between the two. Conscious leadership is me having some sort of awareness of the action that I have in the world. I am aware. It's a conscious leadership. I am a leader and I'm conscious. So in other words, coming back to the example, Donald Trump is aware that he wants America to become great again. So that is his conscious leadership. Consciousness leadership is something different. It drives on the consciousness evolution and transforms leadership along with the higher level of consciousness, of understanding as to what it means to show up in the world. So conscious leadership can be at a very egocentric, as we can see, level of consciousness, although we pretend to be ethnocentric, representing our tribe or country or state, whereas in reality, it's actually a very egocentric interest, driven by egocentric interest. Consciousness leadership attempts to ride the highest possible levels of consciousness. And I mentioned before, global understanding, acting locally from a global understanding of the world, and based on the most evolved and developed science and technology and cultural evolution and others. So there is a consciousness leadership, in my definition, is much richer and really drives evolution at its highest potential.
Absolutely, and thank you for that clarification, which is key, because it's a whole other level of elevation, and yes. I think that is where we lift above.
That's the topic of my dissertation, which I just happen to have here.
That's fantastic.
Consciousness leadership in business.
That's just brilliant. And is it possible for us to buy this online?
It's available online.
Order?
It's my dissertation. Terrific. You just search for it and you can download it. It's 300 pages if you can have it fantastic. Online. Young people don't print anything, don't buy books anymore because everything is available. Yeah.
Yes. And also use Audible and so on. So yes, absolutely. That's terrific. And thank you for sharing that, and encourage everybody to please, get a copy and read about it. And I think that we'll learn a lot, but I do want to bring up the point that you of distinction that you just highlighted, and I think it's important to underscore that. So thank you ever so much for sharing that with us. And with this, I'd like to hand back to Anna. Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you so much. That was such a great answer, and it's so important what you're saying about having a world view, right? And not thinking only of ourselves, and not thinking only maybe of our country, of where we live, and really thinking of solutions and leadership that will benefit everyone. So now, with this in mind, I would like to hand it over to Alejandra Fragoso, who will be asking the next question.
Hi, I love listening to you all. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Well, I would like to ask, what is the internal investing and how can it be implemented into different companies across the world?
Let me make sure I understood the question, that it wasn't very clear acoustically. So I heard you say, what is integral investing and how can it be implemented across the world? Is that correct?
Yeah, how can it be implemented into different companies across the world?
Yes, thank you. Integral investing is based is a model that I am applying in early stage investing and seed stage investing, which is basically most businesses. 90% of all businesses worldwide are from early stage, small and medium enterprises and micro, very small businesses. And the problem is that they could create the most jobs in the world, and that's been statistically proven. You can go to the various UN organizations, find the numbers, or in my book, in my recent book, you can find them. But the problem with that is that they are getting the least support, the least amount of capital possible. And we've seen that occurring even after the financial crisis of 2008. The governments came up with quantitative easing and pouring money into the market, and the same thing happened after now after COVID and others. But the problem with that, so the governments are making all these monies available, but the decision as to who gets the money and who doesn't is being given to the banks. Now, of course, we all know how banks make decisions. They need assets to back up their investment. Well, of course, most young entrepreneurs, be it high tech or not, don't have these kinds of assets. And so what we currently have is all this money that is sitting around, including within the bank's coffers or individual investors and so on, that does not get invested into the economy, into young people. In Germany, just to give you some numbers, 30% of all entrepreneurs have decided during COVID to give up their entrepreneurship and start and get a job someplace. Now we know that it's not going to happen. Why? Because someplace, those who in the past, big organizations have provided the jobs have decided that also they need to transform. The old ways no longer work. So we do have a terrible deadlock in the economy. The money doesn't get to you guys, to young people, and integral investing is providing a solution from an early stage perspective. What does that mean? I am a computer scientist by education, as Anna said in her introduction, and I ended up at Stanford. I studied computer science, and at the time in the early 80s, artificial intelligence. I ended up being sent by the German government to Stanford. That changed, of course, yet again after my Romanian immigration to Germany, my life. And totally, in the mid-90s, my husband and I discovered Mosaic. That was, we saw 1994 was the first browser, the first internet browser, and we knew that a new era of exponentially growing technology was breaking. So what happened is we decided to come to Germany and help companies get an internet presence, and only to find out that no German company had any idea what the internet was, or if they said, well, the telecommunications organizations are going to take care of that. Why do we need an internet presence? And of course, they didn't have internet access. And here, 30 years fast forward, almost 30 years fast forward, COVID had shown us that we have not digitalized. We could have, but we haven't. And I remember at the time I used to work at Oracle Corporation in Redwood Shores headquarters, and Larry Ellison decided, that was back in 1994, he decided he was going to sell all the Oracle products over the internet. Of course, what else? And I came to Oracle. I was based in Oracle, Germany, responsible for EMEA. And the head of Oracle Germany said to everyone, as long as I'm head of Oracle Germany, internet is a non-topic. So it is this, and of course, this turned out to be true. Even in a country like Germany, where the money is there, the education is there, but the political understanding and power and action is not available. And COVID has brought it out to the forefront. So as much as we hate the situation that we're in right now, and it's all transformative, this is amazing. Why? Because we have an extraordinary opportunity to transform. So what does it mean from the integral perspective, integral investing perspective? Well, what happened after 1994, when we saw what the situation was, that actually there wasn't any internet access. I continued to do technology transfer from Silicon Valley and also work at Oracle to earn the bread for the family. And my husband gave up his position. He worked at BCG at the time and started an internet service provider, which I invested in it. We talked to fools, friends, and families to give us money. And we were both entrepreneurs, and that turned out to be the first internet ISP, internet stock, the company that went public on the German stock exchange. And that was pre-bubble, before the 2000. You're all too young to know. You were probably not even born back then. So, and all of a sudden, coming back to closing the loop of my being poor and going to school without food. I had my first doll at age 7, and like most people on this planet, didn't have an indoor bathroom, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, we had an exit. We had, wow. So our financial problems were gone overnight. And so here I found myself, on one hand, being a philanthropist, because my parents were both workers. You know, my mother was a baker, my father was an engineer, but they taught me philanthropy. The moment we left Romania, a month later, they went to our family back to Romania and brought them food so that they could celebrate Christmas. They didn't have any, just like we didn't have. And all of a sudden, here I was, wow. So philanthropy, and then on the other hand, I had this cash, and I thought something is really, really wrong with our world. So during the day, you go to Wall Street and make all these. Now we don't talk millions, we talk billions, right? And then in the evening, we give money, mostly the men, to their wives to donate to some organization who are begging for grants to offset basically what the system does wrong. So I thought, this is not to be had. This is not possible. I need to do something about it. So I looked for a model that would help me get rid of the schizophrenia. You know, how can we, and because another thing, so philanthropy sets off what traditional investing does, to stick to the particular investment industry. But if you look in detail into the philanthropic capital, what you will find is that less than 5% of the capital of the funds allocated into foundation are actually being donated to match the mission of the foundation. What do you think happens to the 95% of the stock, the capital? Of course, it goes to Wall Street, often being invested against the mission of the foundation. And you could find this within the Gates Foundation and others. Why? Because the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand. So something is really, really wrong in our system. So I looked for this model, and that's where I got my PhD. I just showed you the PhD thesis. Because I discovered a model, and that is Ken Wilber's integral model, that helps integrate the left hand with the right hand and apply it within the area of investing. Now, integral investing provides a means, and of course I'm applying it only in early stage because this is the only thing that I understand. I only understand high tech and artificial intelligence and technology in general. I don't do anything else because I've tried. I failed miserably. So I don't do B2C. I do only B2B. But I provide additional de-risking criteria because capital is always less available than resources in general, either be people, even air. We see now the planet tells us that we cannot endlessly pour CO2 into the atmosphere because so we need to be very smart on how to de-risk. And I mentioned before why the capital that is being, the quantitative easing that is being issued by the governments right now doesn't reach the entrepreneurs. And the reason for that is because the measurement criteria of the banks, by which the banks decide to give the money to the investors, to those who ask for it, to the investees, to the entrepreneurs, is based on assets. Now, entrepreneurs don't have assets. You have to come up with additional measurement criteria. So the integral investing provides a 5 steps due diligence process that takes into consideration consciousness aspects. That 80% of the risk is with the team. We look very close to the individuals and see whether they have the ability to fulfill their promises before we invest. We also use UN SDGs ESG criteria to de-risk, and that of course reduces the investment risk as much as possible before we make the decision to invest in early stage entrepreneurs and companies. So this is a very long answer to a short question, but it is very complex. Why? Because it addresses the first question also. It includes the first question. We look for the top 4 to 6% of entrepreneurs who have this global mindset, because we only have 10 years, science tells us, and particularly the IPCC report, the most recent one. And as a member of the Club of Rome, it's extremely important that we use the time, the money, and the resources we have for the next 10 years to set our systems in such that we can survive and ensure the future of life on this planet. So this is what integral investing does, is a model based on integral theory by Ken Wilber. It's the philosopher on which we rely on this. A young man still. He is an American philosopher that if you don't know his work, I highly encourage you to find it out and listen to him. And so we apply that in early stage investing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love how you have explained everything. You have shared everything in a clear and super interesting way. It's made me feel motivated to develop deeper into the topic and the topics that you mentioned during your response. To take leadership, to let to explain with present values. I love you, hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting and inspiring to hear. As an entrepreneur myself, it's so interesting to learn about all of this, really, like about how banks think and how they do their investing and what other ways of investing we can approach. With this in mind, I would like to hand it over to Nahida Ayala, who would be asking the next question.
Thank you, Ana. Hi, Doctor. I'm pretty excited, pretty grateful to be here. My question is kind of related to the question before. It's, how does integral investing change all the old patterns of investing, operating, and how did it become a factor for global impact?
Thank you. Well, the traditional way should be actually known to everyone. Traditionally, if you go to a venture capitalist or a business angel, they will look at the business plan, the traditional marketing plan, the market in general, look at the traditional due diligence criteria. We do that too. For us, ensuring the financial sustainability of a company is as important for you as it is for us. So the first step is in doing the same due diligence, the same using the same criteria as any venture capitalist, and we're talking here only particular, this entire conversation is about this very high risk asset class. We're not talking about anything else. So that's why de-risking is extremely important. So step number one is de-risking of the financial. So the financial model has to work, the market has to work, the idea needs to provide a solution to a problem that exists. We very often could get business plans, but they don't address the problem. It's just something that would be nice to have. So we look for stuff that really, really addresses the UN SDGs within planetary boundaries within the next 10 years. This is extremely important. Maybe later I can take you through the basic strategy that underlies our investment philosophy. So step one, traditional due diligence that any venture capitalist does, particularly since we only invest, as I said, and I only invest my own money. We don't have a fund. We don't invest other people's money. So we look to de-risk well. Step number two, now that we have, and that's, we've been doing this for the past 30 years, ever since almost 30 years, 27 years, but and we used, in step number two, we tried to address the sustainability issues. What is the positive impact? Because, as we said, traditional investing has an impact, but it's very often negative if you don't measure it. So we look for a positive impact. And so in step number two, we try to look as to how the UN SDGs are being implemented within planetary boundaries. What are the ESG criteria, that environmental social governance criteria that are being applied? And the problem with this due diligence is a step in the due diligence has to do with the fact that there aren't any standards. So everyone, you can pick and choose whatever you like. So, and it's now only through the various new Green Deals that governments are finally understood that Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement must be implemented. So slowly but surely, I hope we're going to get standards. But for the time being, we are guided by a strategy that has been inspired by a paper. It's called Transformation is Feasible, a report to the Club of Rome, written by IPCC members and Club of Rome members that say, well, we have 17 UN SDGs. They're all amazing. They're finally, the planet and the 192 countries have agreed on what needs to be achieved on this planet. The problem with these 17 UN SDGs is that they are aspirational. And if you really look at them in detail, they're contradicting each other. And the problem is that many investors are picking and choosing the UN SDGs that they favor and don't look at the impact, the global impact of them with respect to others. Just let me give you an example. UN SDG number 1 is no poverty. Of course, oh God, having been hungry over and over again, I know what that means. So the Chinese government has been extremely supportive, and they've done something that no government has done before. They, over the past 30 years, they lifted each year approximately 30 millions out of poverty every year. So that, I don't know many states, nobody, I don't know anybody who's done that. Now, how did they do that? Well, in order for you to lift 30 million people out of poverty every year, they actually, I remember one year I read that in the Chinese government built in 1 year 120 skyscrapers in Shanghai alone. It's like, how do they do that? But they did. So you need a lot of resources. You need a lot of energy to, getting people out of poverty is providing energy, giving them electricity, giving them food, and so on. So every 2 weeks, they also launched a coal power plant to provide that energy. Well, I don't need to tell you what that means for the environment. And this, of course, goes against the UN SDG number 13, right? So that's why for me, looking at science when it comes to making these decisions is extremely important. So what does science tell us? What does this transformation is feasible tell us? Well, the Club of Rome, for those of you, most young people unfortunately don't know the Club of Rome anymore. We were the first that brought to the public's attention that the planet is running out of resources. That was 52 years ago. If we continue to use the resources as we had been up until then, we are going to run out of resources, and we will be ending up in a climate crisis, which is exactly what we're currently having. So nobody listened. And of course, why don't people listen? Well, because we kept telling everybody how stupid they are, and if they don't do this and that and the other, we're going to. It's just like telling someone who's overeating to stop eating sugar because he or she is going to end up as diabetic, or have stop smoking because you will end up in cancer, blah blah blah. It never sticks. So and those of us who try to change bad habits know how difficult it is to do that. So now Greta Thunberg comes along, and within a year, climate change is on everybody's agenda. So the question is, how do we address climate change, get out of emergency, and still implement the UN SDGs so that, people who are the planetary population is growing, keeps growing? How do we achieve that? And so scientists from the Club of Rome have ran several scenarios and looked at what will happen if we continue in a business as usual, if we try harder, if we make a little change here and there, or if you radically change our approach. And I highly recommend this paper. It's called Transformation is Feasible. It's only a few pages, it's not big, but I can give you 5 items, the 5 action items that are basically the ones that we need to follow within the next 10 years so that we could get back to safe operating systems of the planet, because we currently have left those areas. And by the way, if you have a Netflix subscription, I highly encourage you to watch this movie by the author of The Transformation is Feasible. He did it together with what's his name, Sir Attenborough, and it's called Breaking Boundaries. So watch the movie, because that will give you a very good insight why we cannot pick and choose the UN SDGs that we like. We need to implement them together in a global, following 5 action items. So what are those? Number 1, we need to increase investment significantly in renewable energies. Anything that, we need energy, we need to provide the energy to the planet. Number 2, we need to support developing countries to do whatever the Chinese, the South Korean, and other countries did right, not wrong, right. And we know what that is. So we need to provide this kind of support. Number 3, we need to be ensuring that people get fed, food supply. So increase our productivity in food, and the food production has to be sustainable. Number 4, we need to address inequality. And that's, of course, a big job for countries, for governments. As an investor, I can I can do a little thing, but this is a big thing, is for governments. And number 5, which is my favorite, is girls' education, family planning, health. And because the impact between an educated woman with 12 years of education in terms of the carbon footprint and one without education is 4.5 children. So that is a huge reduction in carbon footprint. And so that's basically step number 2. This is the focus. We focus in these 5 areas, 4 mainly, and then we go to step number 3 in our due diligence process. Remember, the first one was traditional. The second is sustainability. Number 3, we look at the individuals in a team. So if somebody comes to us and, well, what is the 80% of the risk lies with the team. And this is the reason why I got a PhD in psychology as a computer scientist, because these tools are available. Stanford, Harvard, and MIT have amazing due diligence tools, but they don't get applied in investing. We don't look at psychology, we don't look at happiness and joy and how we want to run a company and all these factors. So step number 3, we do these assessments for us as well and the team, not because we want to say, oh, good, bad. No, we want to make an assessment. What are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of each individual and the teams together? And we allocate 3% of the investment sum to the development of the team so that they together get the resources and the money so that they can reach their goals. And of course, step number 5 is making a decision and whether to invest or not. So again, short question, long answer. I hope it was fulfilling to you.
Yeah, it was amazing. So thank you so much. And of course, we'll see the movie and we'll get back to you for sure. But thank you for that long answer, because it really answers more questions. So thank you very much.
And of course, you can find it all. One more thing. This book is actually, it's too expensive to order on Amazon, but the World Health Organization has decided that it provides a great contribution to solving the COVID problem. And that's why it's being made available on the PubMed website. It's a Europe PubMed. You can find it online and you can view it. You cannot download it, but you can read it online. So I can send the information to Ash and you can post it on YouTube or whatever, where people can view the insights. So chapter 4, well, the entire book, the first chapter addresses the grand global challenges and how that's going to be, what are the problems that we have, what are the beautiful benefits of exponential tech. We wouldn't be here without exponential tech and technology in general. So that's amazing. That's extraordinary. And then chapter 2 goes into integral theory and the various tools that you could use yourself to provide, learn on how to do better due diligence from entire team and individual. And chapter 4 is like, how do we actually invest, with plenty of examples of our previous investment career, my career. And the good thing is something that will really is encouraging. The financial due diligence, the financial return on investment is 6.8 multiple. So it's much better than any venture capital investment that you could, in general, on average, of course. So it pays off to look at people and the environment.
Thank you. And yeah, we will surely look for your book. We're so excited and we would love to read it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that amazing answer. I think it's so important what you were highlighting about how we cannot pick and choose the SDGs, right? And there's a reason why there's 17 of them. And in order to really move forward towards a better future, we need to consider them all. Thank you so much. So with this in mind,
and also,
excuse me, sorry,
Yeah.
there is on my website, you can find a speech that I have given at the UN on video that you could look at, where it shows exactly, I show a few slides where it shows what happens and why, and what these scenarios are moving forward if we decide to go this way or the other, and what are the 5 top policy action items, in case you're interested.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'd love to. In fact, I think, thank you for offering to share the links, the PubMed as well. We'll post those to the YouTube, page video as we host this video, so that anybody who needs to refer to it. And I just wanted to say, to add to your remark, Anna, too, that you're absolutely right. I mean, the mere existence of the SDGs is that they're connected, and that's one of the reasons we moved from the MDGs. Of course, at that point, they reached the end of their term, but the idea behind the very raison d'etre of the SDGs. So yeah, thank you very much. And Anna, Very well said. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would really appreciate those links as well. And with this, I would like to hand it over to David, who will be asking the next question.
For me, it's a privilege to be in this discussion and to be able to listen to you. My question is, how can the youth across the world raise awareness and support integral investment?
Excuse me, somebody is running something in the background. If you could mute yourself would be great. And I didn't understand the question. Could you please repeat?
Sorry, do you listen to me?
I can hear you, yes, but I didn't understand you acoustically. And by the way, I posted the links in the chat in case you're interested.
Okay. The question is how can the youth across the world raise awareness and support integral investment?
Sorry, I don't understand can somebody repeat? I don't understand what he's saying.
Yeah, of course, don't worry about that. So David is asking about how the youth across the world can raise awareness and support in the integral investing.
Well, youth who has money should invest, using the integral model. And those who don't should go to those who apply it. Because that's the best way to ensure that we work together. So the good thing is that currently there is a lot of money being inherited from previous generations to young people. And so they end up with billions and billions of dollars and that they haven't had to earn. And so they're given freely this capital to those who are asking for. We need to find each other. And so nevertheless, we need to work with each other, not only as an investor, even if you are only starting a company and building an organization, you need to go by these criteria in terms of your own personal growth, try to become a better person and use the tools that for instance, I outline in get the book and read it. Not because I wrote it, but because I put together stuff that I found personally extremely important over the past 30 years. And so that's the gist of that. And so that will help you grow individually as a person and come up with a psycho-spiritual hygiene. It's just like, it's not enough to work out once, you have to do it every day. I meditate. I have started meditating 41 years ago, and I do that every single morning from 3:30 to 5:30. So it's a psycho-spiritual hygiene that we all need in order to stay sane in a ever-changing world, in where we have begun, just like in the Tower of Babel, we don't understand each other anymore. We're talking by each other. So we need to make sure that those of us who are speaking the same language join forces and, forces and share resources and support each other. So in terms of applying the integral investing model, it's a model. Ken Wilber will tell you it's the next paradigm in early stage investing, of course, because it transcends and includes previous levels of consciousness. So we're moving to a higher planetary understanding. So, and it spells out as to, if I were to start a company, what do I have to do today? Not only as an investor, but as an entrepreneur. Because the questions addressed there are those that you should be asking yourself, whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur building a company. What is the service that I do? Does anyone need my product? What is the impact? Am I financially sustainable or not? Because one of the things that you will find in this very crazy world that I mentioned, I said it's schizophrenic, is the fact that you have the separation. Oh, you either give money away or you invest and then you have to pay high prices, give your freedom, give away 95% of your company, blah, blah. Both of them are BS. have served us thus far, but now we need to transform. So from my perspective, the greatest and the biggest investor is the entrepreneur. It's not the person who comes with the money. And so it is a partnership. We are all in this together. We need to work together. So use this model to awaken to a different understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneur, to be an investor, and how to build a company that is sustainable, to build the future. It's just, I mean, our future is at stake. I'm not kidding. I don't want to, I'm a positive optimist, and I'm a scientist. So I base my statements on research, and so I believe that we will make it possible, but it's not going to be easy. And so as the old models are falling apart, and I'm not pretending to have a better ones, what is the discourse that we need to go through in order to come up with better models? And so this is my suggestions in terms of a suggestion, in terms of a direction. So that's all. And I totally agree with you. As you said, we need to go into this, conversation, and in a very humble conversation as to what does the future look like, and allow for the wisdom of each and every one of us to emerge, in the process. It is time consuming, and we need to put an end eventually to the conversation before we act. We need to keep the balance, but we need to, and this is what the integral model provides. It provides a landscape, if you want to travel from Delhi to Munich, you would need a map, whether you fly or you go by bike or you walk or they go take a train or the boat, but you need a good map. And this is what integral theory provides. It provides a map. However, the map is not the territory. And, because where yesterday you could find a building or a tree or people or a city, tomorrow can look totally different. So it provides a better lens to look at the world, but you still need to use your common sense. So this is my advice to youth. I hope that makes sense.
For me, it's very interesting. What do you say about the personal ground and the working on better people? In addition, the recognition of the union to achieve common goals. Thanks for the response.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That has been really interesting as well. And we have one final question by Andres Martinez. I'm not sure if he's here, so if not, I'll just go ahead and ask it. We wanted to know your expectations for COP26.
Well, my expectation, I'm trying to be humble and realistic. I don't know that COP26 will be any different than previous COPs, because every time, the whole world comes together, it takes time. And I have been at Rio +20 in 2012, when actually the decision was made to transform the Millennium Development Goals into Sustainable Development Goals. And I attended several meetings. It's like pulling hair. I don't know whether you attended any of these UN organizations or that anything, and I'm a business person, that's how I judge things. Anything that is ever achieved in such context I have to admire people. I'm not a negotiator, I'm not a diplomat. So I am being, God, if anything, that any step forward would be as, good. So I don't emphasize COP26. I think that people have gotten it. They understood that we do have problems. They understood that they, need to come up with solutions. But when it comes to making these ideas, turning them into reality, it's all up to you and me. It's, we all need to take responsibility. We cannot give the responsibility to anybody else. It won't work. And I think our power together, having such a platform like POP, and having you wonderful people come together with a determination to come up with solutions and use better ideas and join forces, and also go to places where capital can be made available, and knowing how to ask for this capital, because so often we receive business plans and young people don't know what should be in a business plan. What is the thinking of an investor? What are they looking for? What are the issues that I need to address in addition to my my personal wishes? And so by writing this book, I wanted to provide a common vehicle so that entrepreneurs and investors evolve too. I mean, I don't need to tell you that most investors don't get it. I mean, just because they have money doesn't mean that they know what it means to address the UN SDGs within planetary boundaries, or that they know what it means to implement a new Green Deal. They're going to do the same thing they've always done. Few of us, it's only the leaders, the consciousness leaders, my dear friends, who are going to change the world. So try to understand and identify those who got it, and with whom you speak the same language, because time is limited. And then together we can transform more than if we wait for everybody else to get it, or wait for governments to understand it. I mean, if I look at the German election now, we are before the next chancellor election of the German government. It's a nightmare. It's full of incompetent people. They don't know what they're doing. They believe that going the same way is going to be perfect, and they're totally incompetent. Not all of them, but those who do have competence are not running. And so I don't expect much, but I do expect a lot. And I know that the society, culture, individuals, they know what it means to run their businesses, to do the right thing. They know what it means. They know what is at stake, because it's about your community. It's about your family. It's about your child. And that's what changes. So we need to go, ego, ethno, world-centric, and take responsibility. Times have passed when we could just hand it over to some government, to some organization to make a decision about who we are, where we're going, and to ensure our future. So take charge and keep doing what you're doing is perfect.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. I think, yeah, what you were saying about COP26 versus COP25 and all previous COPs is very realistic. However, my personal hope is that with the very alarming IPCC report that just came out 2 days ago, I hope serious action will come from that. I know we haven't seen it in the past, but it's so alarming, and it's so crucial to take immediate action that I hope things are taken into consideration. But thank you so much for that amazing answer, because I completely agree that it's in the responsibility of all of us to act and not just leave it to those in higher places. With that, I would like to hand it over to Ash for his conclusions and any closing words he might like to have.
Thank you. I just want to say that this has been such a rich conversation, and Mariana, you've shared so much with us, and so much for us to learn as we go from this conversation, not just reflecting back and listening to you again, but so much material for us to access and absorb. And I think your point about the fact that we've ended up where we have, and that depending on a group of global leaders to solve the problems of the world is not the way to go, but each of us has a role to play. And we have a role to play also in terms of pushing global governments and global leaders, because I think that citizens and individuals have a very important part to amplify voices and demand of governments as well. But again, our role in this is crucial, and for us to elevate, like you said, move to that universal level of consciousness is so key. And I really hope that each and every single one of us is able to to take away these key messages and really find ways to bring them into our lives, but make them a part of ourselves, so that we can be those important values that you talked about. It's not a matter of doing it once or twice. It's not a matter of thinking about it or using terminology. It's really about practice. And I think you exemplify that, because you talked about your own personal story. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that with us, but also the importance of the practice that you adopt in your life every single day. And it's a part of a process. And so I just want to say this has been so very rich, and thank you for all the links. We're going to make sure we post them, and encourage everybody to pick up the books that you've written, to learn from that experience, your research, and your work in your life in this process. And I just want to say this has been so valuable, so filled with wisdom, that I think we already feel at one level transformed from just being part of this conversation. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I'm still sort of really processing my thoughts as I have had the great fortune of being together with you here today. And I speak on behalf of the family, I know. So I just want to say thank you. And as we close today, would love to hear any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with. You've left us with a lot, but anything you'd like to say as we close. And I just want to say that you're a precious part of the Pop family, and all that you shared, your guidance, your insights, your personal experience, your wisdom, your values, and then your research and your science and evidence-based work. All of it means so very much to us, and I want us all to hold it close to our hearts in everything we do. So I hope that this will be the first among many conversations we are blessed to have with you, and that we continue to grow together. And like you said, we do it together. So thank you so very much once again for today and everything that you stand for and that you share with the world. You're very generous. I know you share prolifically, and it's going to grow. And I can assure you the Pop family, of which you're a central part, will definitely carry this forward, keeping all that you shared close to our hearts and souls. So thank you. And I'd love to hand back to you, Mariana, and ask you to share anything more you'd like to share with us as we close. And thank you.
Well, I'm deeply touched to my heart, and I feel honored and truly privileged to be part of this. And I feel honored that you have invited me, although I only met your precious father once, unfortunately. But the one time that I met him was just out of this world, and I could instantaneously connect with his beautiful heart. It was a beautiful, beautiful soul, not just a brilliant mind. So I'm honored that you reached out to me, and that I could participate, my little piece of wisdom here. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I wanted to also point out something that I shared in the chat. I would highly invite you to watch my interview that I did with Daniel Schmachtenberger. Those of you who don't know him, I highly encourage you to listen to, you can start listening with the interview. He is the founder of the Consilience Project, and he is working in a similar direction as you do. And I think one of the most important aspects right now is not to go out and do stuff. I think what you're doing is extremely important, to take a little more time and allow individual wisdom to come to the forefront, which then by itself enables the emergence of the collective wisdom, which will show us what is the best direction. And this is exactly what he's doing and what the Consilience Project does. So I think he will be an additional enrichment to your activities here. And also, if you find it of any value, please feel free to add the Aqua Capital to your list of partners.
Thank you.
I would be happy to be, part of the wonderful network. So thank you all. It's been an honor and a privilege. God bless you on your way. And I'm looking forward to continuing this extraordinary conversation. I'm totally enriched and my heart is open. And I know that the world is better because you exist. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We echo those sentiments to the fullest and want to thank you and convey how deeply privileged, how very blessed we are to be together with you and to have your invaluable partnership, guidance, love, and light as we move forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe and stay blessed.
Thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you.
With all our love. Thank you.